the Seventh-day Adventist Church is changing. For some, these changes bring hope. For others, concern. And there are still those who silently, simply walk away. But behind all this, something deeper, quieter, and more powerful is happening. Something that few can see at first glance. In recent years, many voices have been raised. Some say that the church is losing its prophetic identity. Others claim that this is just a phase of adaptation. But amid the criticism, the justifications, and the silence of so many, few people have stopped to ask, what is really happening to the Adventist Church? Are we facing a crisis or the fulfillment of a prophecy? This video is not a criticism. It is not an attack. It is a call to spiritual discernment. Because the current moment of the church goes far beyond a change in style, leadership, or structure. Perhaps you have already felt this in worship services, in schools, in sermons, or even in simple conversations among brothers and sisters. Since its prophetic origins after the great disappointment of 1844, the Adventist Church was born with a clear and urgent mission: to proclaim the messages of Revelation 14 and prepare a people for the soon return of Jesus. That mission has not changed. But the current scenario shows that something new is emerging, and this new stage is quieter, more delicate, but also more decisive than ever. And that is what we are going to reflect on together. If you are an Adventist, were once an Adventist, or just want to understand what is happening with this unique church, stay tuned until the end. What is happening may not be a deviation, but God's own action, preparing His people for the final moments of history. Like, subscribe, and share with someone who is also seeking to understand the times we live in. What is happening to the Adventist Church may actually be what God promised would happen to His people in the end times. Many are noticing a change. Many sincere Adventists from different parts of the world have expressed the same perception. The church is not the same anymore. Some feel that the style of worship services has become more superficial. Others are concerned about modern preaching that sometimes leaves out topics such as the sanctuary, health reform, and the investigative judgment. There are also concerns about certain positions on social issues, administrative decisions, and even interfaith collaborations that cause confusion. This feeling is not new, but it has intensified in recent years. And it does not come only from conservatives or older members. Young people, missionaries, teachers, and even pastors have expressed the same sentiment. Something has changed. The question that echoes in the hearts of many is straightforward. Is this change bringing us closer to Christ, or is it distancing us from the original mission? It is at this point that many begin to lose heart, and some unfortunately drift away. But the story does not end there, and it is precisely here that something profound begins to emerge. Even so, a people resists. Even amid all these changes, criticisms, and challenges, something remains unshakable: the faithfulness of a people who do not compromise. In the simplest churches, in family groups, in early morning prayer meetings, and in quiet Bible studies, there are still brothers and sisters who live the Adventist faith with reverence, fear, and hope. They don't make headlines, they don't hold prominent positions, but they are men, women, young people, and seniors who stand firm, keeping God's commandments, believing in the testimonies of the spirit of prophecy, respecting the Sabbath as sacred, and preaching with their lives that Jesus is coming back. They are Adventists who reject spiritual coldness, who do not conform to passing trends, and who remain vigilant even when everything around them seems to be cooling down. They are not deluded by numbers or structures. They are firmly grounded on the rock. It is this silent and faithful group that sustains, by God's grace, the true identity of the Adventist Church. And it is through them that something invisible is being preserved. The work continues, even in silence. While some are distracted only by the negative, they forget to look at an undeniable fact. The work of the Seventh-day Adventist Church has not stopped. On the contrary, it remains alive, active, and faithful to its mission. Only now, in many places, this work is happening more quietly, more discreetly, and perhaps that is why it is so ignored by those who only see the surface. Even today, the Adventist Church is present in more than 200 countries, with thousands of schools, hospitals, publishing houses, missionary centers, and humanitarian programs. Every day, lives are touched through the tireless work of anonymous brothers and sisters, colporteurs, missionaries, teachers, and Adventist doctors. The Adventist Communication Network, notably TV Novo Tempo and numerous radio stations, YouTube channels, and digital projects, brings messages of hope and truth to places where the Bible has barely arrived. Church publications continue to be translated and distributed in dozens of languages. And even in countries closed to Christianity, the message is being sown with prudence, courage, and faith. This is not the work of men. It is the fruit of a people who, even in the face of internal struggles and external pressures, have not abandoned the mission God has entrusted to them. While the world engages in passing debates, Adventists continue to speak of Jesus' return, the heavenly sanctuary, the Sabbath as God's seal, and the judgment that has already begun. There may not be much fanfare, but the truth is that behind the scenes of history, the Adventist Church is still fulfilling exactly what heaven expects of it. We would love to know what you have noticed in your church and in the journey of the Adventist Church today. Leave your comment below. Your opinion is important to strengthen this conversation and help other brothers and sisters reflect as well. Health, family, and reform. Points that are still alive. In times of such moral and doctrinal confusion, there are three pillars of the Adventist Church that remain alive, active, and transformative: health reform, family principles, and spiritual reform. The Adventist message on health for over a century has warned of dangers now widely recognized by science: poor diet, addictions, sedentary lifestyles, stress, and medication abuse. And this message did not remain only on paper. In various parts of the world, Adventists continue to promote a balanced lifestyle based on temperance, natural foods, physical exercise, and trust in God. The recognition is worldwide. The city of Loma Linda in the United States, home to a large Adventist community, has been classified as one of the few blue zones on the planet where people live longer and better. And this is not luck. It is the result of a lifestyle faithful to the light received. In addition, the Adventist family structure remains a silent but powerful testimony. Long-lasting marriages, raising children in the ways of the Lord, daily family worship, involvement of children and young people in the mission of the church, all of this still exists, even if the media does not talk about it. And finally, spiritual reform. There is a growing number of Adventists who are returning to the Bible with seriousness, to the spirit of prophecy with reverence, and to the simplicity of the gospel with depth. They are setting aside distractions, vanities, and fruitless debates to devote themselves, in fact, to preparing for Christ's return. These pillars are still alive, and as long as they remain firm, the identity of God's people will also remain. The shaking has already begun. And it is precisely in this scenario that one of the most solemn events in church history has already begun to take place: the shaking. Ellen White described this moment as a time when many who are in the church today will leave, not because of persecution, but because they reject the clear truths of the gospel. They will be shaken by the truth, and they will not resist. The church may seem about to fall, but it will not fall. Only the faithful will remain. What is happening to the Adventist church today is not the end. It is the beginning of the fulfillment of this prophecy. The shaking is separating appearance from essence. It is revealing who is there for culture and who is there for conviction. Those who remain faithful, even in silence, even without support, even when misunderstood, are being sealed. They are preparing themselves. They stand firm with their eyes fixed on heaven. It is not a matter of abandoning the church because of human errors. It is a matter of remaining in it with faithfulness, even in the midst of contrary winds, because the Lord still dwells among His people. God's silence also speaks. Sometimes it seems that heaven is silent, that God does not respond, or that His presence is not so evident. But this silence is not absence. It is an invitation to reflection and a test of faith. In biblical history, moments of divine silence preceded great revelations and changes. God's people went through deserts, periods of waiting, and apparent abandonment, but God never left them completely. Today, the Adventist church experiences this silence as a test. God watches closely, allowing the process to unfold, separating what is true from what is temporary. As much as it seems that God is silent, He is working behind the scenes, caring for His remnant, guiding and strengthening those who remain steadfast. The church will not fall, but many will leave. Ellen White was clear when she stated, "It may seem that the church will fall, but it will not fall." This promise brings hope in a time of uncertainty. The Adventist church, as an institution, will face difficulties, crises, and trials. However, God guarantees that His faithful people will remain prepared for the coming of Christ. Not everyone will remain, and many who are part of the church today may leave. But the focus is not on the institution itself, but on that faithful remnant that upholds the true mission. It is these prepared people who will continue in God's plan, persevering despite adversity, keeping hope alive and the flame of faith burning. What is happening to the Adventist church is not a sign of abandonment or defeat. It is in fact a test that God has allowed to strengthen His people. Even in the midst of difficulties, a faithful remnant remains, preserving the essence of the prophetic mission. There are people within the SDA Church who, silently and steadfastly, continue to prepare for the return of Jesus, keeping the commandments and living in holiness. This remnant is the hope for the future. If you feel called to stand firm, to support this work that continues even in difficult times, know that your participation is essential. If this video touched your heart and helped you better understand what is happening with the Adventist Church, be sure to leave your like. It strengthens our work and helps spread this message. Subscribe to the channel to receive our upcoming content, which always brings deep and respectful reflections on topics that impact faith. We really want to know what you have noticed in the church today. Share your experience and your questions in the comments. Your voice is very important to all of us. And if you want to directly support this mission of bringing the truth to more people, use Super Chat to make a donation. Your help is essential for us to keep the channel active and expand our reach. Thank you for being with us on this journey. May God strengthen your faith and guide your steps.